Welcome into another edition of Gold and Black Radio. I'm your host, Derek Schutlz. First, I want to thank you for listening because you're still here, and that means that we're still here, despite the fact that I'm not sure anybody really wants to be here right now talking about this Purdue football season, which already appears to be beyond anyone's grasp. On today's show, of course, we're going to discuss that crushing defeat in Madison and the early effects of the losing season bleeding into football recruiting with our pal Tom Dienhart here in just a few moments. And later, we're going to cheer you up with some men's hoops convo with Brian Neubert, who is freshly back from Big Ten Media Days in Chicago last week. But first, a thank you to our sponsors that bring you Gold and Black Radio each and every week. Those include Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler up. East End Grill and Ripple and Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. And the Whitaker Inn. For unparalleled comfort and cuisine, visit the Whitaker Inn. Now let's welcome on Tom Dienhart, the analyst from goldandblack.com. And Tom, look, I understand that Notre Dame elicits more of an emotional response because they're a rival and they're in state. But I actually exited Saturday's game feeling worse about that performance than I did about the Notre Dame one. Does that make sense? Am I crazy?
Derek, I'm losing track of the demoralizing losses. I guess it's something that we're trying to categorize. Which loss was worse, right? And it's only October, early October. Derek, I haven't even raked a leaf yet. We're talking about this kind of stuff, and people are looking at contract buyouts already. It's been an epic disaster. Look, there's no other way to talk around this. It's not good. And from top to bottom, there's really not much you can really hang your hat on from a positive standpoint, Derek. It's all been well documented. We've talked ourselves to death about it. The message boards have been ablaze. Everywhere you go, there's just unrest and unhappiness among the fan base. Losing is one thing, Derek. Not being competitive is another. Getting run off the field by mediocre teams. On and on it goes. I mean, I think that's what's really demoralizing. Nobody expected an 8-4 or 9-3 season. But, 5 wins. Maybe 6-6, maybe 7-5, but certainly wanted to be competitive or expected a competitive team, a team that looked prepared, a team that looked like it could make adjustments, and a team that looked like it really tried. I could go on and on here. The missed tackles, the poor angles, the inability to convert third downs. You've seen it, Derek. It's just been a very tough first five games of the season. And Derek, we got 7 more to go. And 5 of those opponents are ranked in the AP top 25 right now.
Yeah, it's not good, right? As they say, as far as where Purdue sits. And I felt like Saturday's game, even though obviously it ballooned afterwards, it followed kind of that same script as Oregon State and Nebraska in that first quarter and a half or so, you felt like, okay, they got a chance here. And if the offense can just cash this in, and if this could just happen or that could just happen, and then, suddenly there's just a catastrophic mistake. It's a muff punt. It's a pick six. It's just kind of the same old. And then the second the thing snowball, Tom, once the door shuts, it just doesn't open up again for this team.
Yeah, Ryan Walters talked on Monday, Derek, about the inability to handle adversity. And you talked about some of that adversity that's seemingly hit Purdue early in every game. After, like you said, they had a positive start, gotten some first downs, moved the ball. Oregon State, it was the muffed handoff, the muffed exchange between Maccabee and Hudson Card, of course, and the inability to turn these turnovers into touchdowns, having to set up field goals. You mentioned the muffed punt last week by Dylan Thieneman that was recovered. And again, it's always been something that Purdue, Derek, cannot overcome this adversity. The first quarter alone, they've been outscored 35-7 this year. Purdue's only touchdown came against Indiana State in the first quarter. They've yet to score in the first quarter in the last 4 games. Yes, opponents. Again, they've only had 1 lead against FBS opponents, 2 against Nebraska. They took a 3-0 lead, and that went away quick. So, again, there's no use me getting my sledgehammer out and beating up a broken car even more. This looks like a deeply flawed team. A team that I don't care if you're chugging black and gold Kool-Aid, Derek. A team that I don't think you can fix between Saturdays at this point. This is an off-field job. So I wish I had more positive things to say. Here we go to Champaign, Illinois, and Brett Bielema is licking his chops for a chance to get his old defensive coordinator and pay him back for last year's loss.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than to go to a ranked rival on the road, right? And that's essentially what the Purdue is going to do
Yeah.
here with the Cannon game. But at this point, Tom, right now, as long as it's a Big Ten opponent, really any Big Ten opponent, I think I speak for the Purdue fan base when I say that it's hard to feel confident in them beating anybody, much less a top 25 level Illini team.
Yeah, can't put together hardly 2 quarters of consistent football, let alone 4 quarters. And they seem like they're going to have to play the perfect game, Derek. Penalties, no turnovers. And that looks like an impossibility. And I mentioned penalties, Derek, and boy, that's been a bugaboo too. That's sort of a reflection, I think, of discipline in a lot of ways. Yeah, again, offensively, they're trying some things right. We talked last week about Jason Simmons. God bless Jason Simmons' soul. He was put in a tough situation. He tried some different things. We saw some wrinkles, some option. We saw Card on the move a little bit, roll in the pocket. We saw an offensive lineman used in motion as a blocker. But again, they couldn't early on. They had to set up for those field goals. And that really hurt them last week. And again, the passing game is beyond recognition, explosive plays. And then, of course, third downs continue to be just a catastrophe. 1 of 11 last week, Derek. You can't stay on the field. You can't move the ball on and on and goes. And the defense, I mentioned the missed tackles, the poor angles. I think they tend to maybe slump their shoulders, Derek, when the offense goes off the rails. They go, oh, no, here we go again. And that shouldn't be the case, but that's sort of my sense.
Yeah, I think they capsize under the pressure that not to give the defense a blanket pass because they have not been good either. Nothing's been good, right?
True.
But I think they capsize under the pressure that the offense gives them because we just haven't seen really anything from the offense, at least not in the FBS games so far to this point. When it comes to sort of bleeding through and seeing not only the on-field repercussions of this start for Purdue, Tom, we're also starting to see some of it off the field as far as recruiting is concerned with a string of decommitments here over the past week or so.
Yeah, I guess that fallout is to be expected given the well-documented struggles of Purdue this year. If you were a commitment, Derek, what would you be thinking sitting on your couch on Saturdays watching this ugliness unfold? It's only natural. These guys have to secure their future, and they've seen 3 decommitments so far, Derek, 2 from the class of 25, the quarterback from the class of 26, Oscar Rios from Downey, California, 4-star kid. He bailed. Dwayne Galloway was the latest decommitment, the 2025 cornerback from Columbus, largely thought to be Purdue's top-rated recruit in this class so far. And this all began early last week, about a week ago, with LeBron Hill, a wide receiver from Hammond, Indiana, decommitting. So that's 2 from the 25 class, the 126 commit. And Derek, who knows? Like I said, who knows? I'm always checking my Twitter. Got these guys on Twitter alerts. You hate to see those tweets come up. Respect my decision. I've decided to decommit from, sometimes they say the University of Purdue, but anyway, again, who knows? Again, I guess you really can't blame anybody, right? You have to do what's best for yourself, and nobody's signed a letter of intent yet. That comes December 4th. Derek, December 4th, the first day you can sign letters of intent. Who's going to be in charge at Purdue on December 4th? It's going to be interesting to see. That seems like a long way away, but it's really not, Derek.
Yeah, and then, of course, quickly it'll be the portal, and then
the portal too.
The decommitment era never really ends in today's college football, right? It's not just the recruits, it's the current players that can also, quote unquote, decommit as well. And that's what you worry about with things snowballing here. The after effects, we're already starting to kind of see that happen for this program, unfortunately, with where they are. Tom Dienhart, the analyst from goldenblack.com, join us on Golden Black Radio. This portion of the show brought to you by our friends at Sand Valley Resort. Celebrate all that the wilderness provides this fall and winter at Sand Valley. Experience everything from Thanksgiving dinner, curling and ice hockey, to ice fishing and snowshoeing, and even the restorative benefits of a guided cold plunge in the frozen lakes. Start planning your next winter getaway by visiting sandvalleypursuits.com. And, of course, don't forget to sign up to become a member for Tom's work and all the best Purdue coverage right here at goldenblack.com. Tom, Ryan Walters still is required to speak to the media, and he did yesterday, or earlier today, I should say. What did he have to say about, first, let's go with the injury. This is where it looks like Purdue is having a rosier outlook than normal.
Yeah, injuries haven't been a real key issue here to these struggles on the field. Relatively healthy, all things considered, Derek. 5 games into the season. Optimistic about Jaden Dixon-Neville getting on the field. Moamade didn't play last week with an ankle. He seemed optimistic there. So, by and large, Antonio Stevens is the key guy on defense, the safety, who's a starting safety. Good chance he can play too. So really, long story short, they're in pretty good health going to Champaign. Now, of course, the C.J. Smith watch continues. Of course, the wide receiver from Georgia, who's yet to play one snap for Purdue. Like the hamstring issue got him in August, Derek. I got a feeling we're never going to see him suit up. I know I probably shouldn't project and speculate, but that's my feeling here with these hamstring injuries and guys with elite speed. They're sort of like thoroughbreds, right? So again, by and large, they're going to have to go without Smith again, but they should be pretty well fortified and have a pretty fully stocked roster when kickoff takes place at 3:30 Eastern time on Saturday.
How do you feel about how Ryan Walters has handled this? Because I do feel like, not that there are excuses to make, because I just don't know if there are any, but he's not making up excuses as they go. It feels like he's accepting what is out there for him with this football team and this 1-4 start.
Yeah, at least his forward-facing words and projections certainly, you see no real unwavering there in what he's doing and what he believes in. Certainly no lack of confidence. He was always, I think, a guy who felt good about himself and what he was trying to do. And like I said, Derek, I have to look him in the eyes after these games on Mondays as well. Yeah, I mean, for a guy that's really going through a lot of struggles, he's sort of really composing and carrying himself pretty well. Like you said, not really making excuses. I think he obviously gets it. He knows what he has to do. He says they can do it. So we'll see. Like I said, the fan base is eagerly watching to see what the next step is going to be here, and if indeed Ryan can pull this thing out of the fire.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's going to have to do, unfortunately, because this is not been, I don't think, even what the people that expected and picked Purdue to finish last in the Big Ten expected to see, as far as not that they're losing, but how they're losing these games. And
yeah, that's it.
And that kind of goes to our preseason conversation, Tom. I remember the first show that we did probably a little over a month ago, where I said, I felt that way at the time. Purdue, I didn't think I was going to judge them on wins and losses, because I was thinking, hey, this could be a team that's improved from last year, but they could still go 4-8 because the schedule's so rough. And now you're thinking to yourself, man, if they could get to 2-10, that feels like that would be a win at this point, and I'm very rarely at a loss for words, but they've kind of put us, I think, in that sort of position, unfortunately.
I'm at this stage, all I can do is laugh, Derek. All I can laugh at this point. But yeah, you're right. You are really at a loss for words. So that's saying something. You're good with your words, and yeah, boy, talk about managing your expectations. Thinking a 2-10 finish, hey, that's not too bad. But we could be staring down the down the tunnel at a 1-11 season. And Purdue had a 1-win season. I think it was 2013 under Daryl Hazel. And they had a 1-win season in 1993 under Jim Coletto. I can't believe I've already committed the 1-win seasons to memory, Derek. Wow. Just for occasions like this.
Sure.
And certainly nobody wants a 1-win season. And I guess if there's a bright side, I mean, in this era of college football with the portal and whatnot, I think you can turn programs around pretty quickly. Is Ryan Walters going to get the chance to turn this program around? I don't know. We can speculate for days on what his future is going to do. Many people are, obviously. But again, I know we said too, Derek, that things are never as good as you think. Things are never as bad as you think. Well, Derek, I think things are as bad as we think with this program right now. So I wish you had more positive things to say. I know one positive, Derek, is the fact that basketball season is around the corner, and I think, unfortunately, a lot of Purdue fans are already turning the page to get some coverage on the team predicted to win the Big Ten men's basketball this year.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Tom, because not like I'm trying to kick you out of your own show, but we got Brian Neubert coming up here, and I was hoping that we could talk about some positive things. So let's let you exit stage left. We will see you coming up here on Gold and Black Radio on Friday, my friend. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Derek Schutlz.
And we're back on a Gold and Black Radio Tuesday edition, and I've got a new background. As you can see, look at that. Basketball season, right? We don't have to keep talking football the entire time on all of these shows. I think we drive our entire audience away, Brian, if we did that. Brian Neubert joins us, who is fresh back from Chicago, put some miles on the car. And the good thing about Big Ten Media Days, Brian, is that Purdue picked number 1. So that's all happy, sunshine, rainbows, gumdrops, and sugar plum fairies, isn't it?
Yeah, and this probably isn't going to do a whole lot to dispel the notion that I actually live in my car.
I don't see a hot plate or any blankets in there, so I think we're okay.
I don't. I swear I don't live in my car. No, but I did earlier in the week or late last week for Big Ten Media Day. And yeah, it's you know, I think Purdue is the most known commodity in the Big Ten, simply by virtue of the fact that, like, people return. You know, nowadays you don't know who's playing for who until they actually go out there. But Purdue and Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Renn, along with a couple other guys who played lesser roles last season, but now move into bigger ones. I think people at least have seen Purdue and know what to expect from Purdue. And obviously Purdue has earned the benefit of the doubt in a lot of these situations now. And coming off an NCAA runner-up season, I think Purdue has, you know, probably been the pretty clear favorite to be number 1 in the preseason in the Big Ten. That doesn't necessarily guarantee you anything, but I think, you know, Purdue at least has given people reason to have a baseline expectation for them.
Besides the beard, what else do you expect to see from Braden Smith this season that's new, maybe different in a post-Zach Edey world for the first time?
Yeah, I think obviously I think the most interesting thing anyone from Purdue said at Big Ten Media Day was Braden Smith saying that his priority this season is leadership, or one of them is leadership. Obviously, you need him to score, you need him to pass, you need him to facilitate, you need him to defend, you know, all the things that you always expect a great player to do. But there's a dynamic with Braden Smith where when a guy is an elite, almost obnoxious competitor, you know, sometimes they're not always on the same page with those around them because they tend to project their worldview onto everyone around them, and thus, you know, sometimes patience and communication become issues. I think he kind of understands that he needs to get along better with, not to say he didn't get along with guys before, but I think he and Zach Edey had this really kind of special wavelength they were on last season where they kind of operated the same way. Now, I think Braden Smith has to be more of a teacher. I think he has to be a guy who helps the younger people along, but also the guys who are playing different roles and the guys he has to coexist the best with. You know, Zach Edey last year in pick and roll, he and Braden Smith really found something special in that regard. And you're not going to replicate that. But I think what's going to have to happen here is when somebody messes something up, you know, it's a productive situation. And I don't think that was ever really a problem, but I thought it was just interesting that Braden Smith brought it up, that he's trying to be a good communicator. He's trying to know his teammates individually as well as possible, know how to push their buttons. And that's exactly what you want to hear from a leader. You don't want a guy who's going to be impatient with people, snap at people, and potentially, you know, hurt chemistry, hurt other guys' confidence. Ultimately, the point guard is the guy who you really want to be your leader, but you want him to be the guy who brings the best out of everybody around him. That's a basketball issue, but that's also an interpersonal issue. And knowing how to push the buttons of the people around you is a really, really important element to the highest level of point guard play. And for him to bring that up, I thought was really interesting.
I feel like Trey Kaufman-Renn is the one that is really linked to unlocking their potential. Like, I think we know, Purdue can be a really good basketball team, but if Trey Kaufman-Renn makes like a leap, then I think maybe we're talking about something else even entirely for this season. But am I wrong? And I'm not trying to put it all on his shoulders because, Purdue's got other guys that are Fletcher Lawyer, et cetera, that have to do some heavy lifting. But am I wrong to have that kind of mentality going into the season?
You're not wrong. I think there may not be a player in college basketball best positioned to like triple their productivity from last season because, Trey Kaufman-Renn is a really productive player. He's just not had his opportunity yet to be that guy in terms of usage and role and the way a team is going to rely on him, the way Purdue's going to rely on him now. He is moving into one of the best. I always compare it to being Steve Spurrier's quarterback in the 90s. Like, it's one of the best jobs in college basketball. When you are Purdue's go-to post scorer, you are going to put up numbers. And, for Trey Kaufman-Renn, he's going to put up much bigger numbers. They're going to build offense for him, which, hasn't been the case these first 2 years for him. He had to play alongside Zach-Edey last year, and everybody's productivity kind of took a backseat to Zach-Edey's, which obviously was justifiable. But I think now you move Trey Kaufman-Renn into all these post touches, all of these plays and all these actions are going to be designed to get him the ball where he needs the ball. And I think you're just going to see him take off. And when his ability is combined with the fact that the guy works his off, and he thinks, he's really cerebral and he's really conscientious and he plays really hard, and it's just a perfect combination for a guy to have an absolute breakout season. And when I say breakout season, I don't think there's a ceiling on what that looks like.
Yeah, let's just hope that he's more Danny Warfel than Jesse Palmer, I guess, right?
Jesse Palmer had some pretty good years in Florida, right? Didn't he? Yeah. I'm trying to think of quarterbacks who were bad at Florida. I can't think of any.
Basically all of them. Yeah. Barely any of them were good in the pros, but at least under Spurrier. But I feel like all of them. Shane Matthews was a really productive guy.
Yeah. Spurrier, you throw one incompletion, you're on the bench. So
yeah. No, you're not wrong about that. I think you would use the term fluid when talking about the lineup decisions for this year. We know that the returnees are going to play, but there seem to be a lot of versatile options for Painter in his front and back courts, depending on whether he wants to go big or whether he wants to go defensive heavy. And that's probably a good space for Purdue to be in as well, to feel like they have those options.
Yeah, I think there's two big moving pieces lineups wise. The first of which is Trey Kaufman-Renn, whether he plays center or power forward. I think when he's at power forward, you have him next to a 7-footer, and suddenly you have a little more rim protection. You have theoretically a better rebounding lineup. I think when he's at center, I think you have a more athletic lineup because you got Camden Heide or whoever it may be playing next to him. But you also have a more versatile scoring look at the 5 because Trey Kaufman-Renn can play all over the floor offensively. And then the other piece of it is I think that, you're going to see a lot more 3-guard lineups from Purdue because I think, people are going to justifiably try to take the ball out of Braden Smith's hands a lot. And I think having that extra ball handler that Lance Jones gave them last season, you don't have Lance Jones, but having something like that is especially important this year for that reason. So I think you're going to see Jakari Harris, CJ Cox, guys like that maybe playing a little bit more at the 2 position, pushing Fletcher Lawyer to the 3. What that would mean for Miles Colvin. Miles Colvin has to obviously show he can be as complete a player as possible, but he's not necessarily the ball handler you would probably want there. So I think you're going to see Purdue slip in an extra guard here and there wherever they can at times. But know that they're going to look a lot of different ways on a possession to possession, maybe game to game, week to week, month to month basis, and kind of see what works best and go from there.
Well, we'll hear all about it on the message boards, I'm sure, if there are any problems with those lineups about who should be playing and all of that, as we do every single year. Brian, appreciate it. And even when you're in your car, we love hearing from you here on Golden Black Radio, and we'll talk to you coming up here on Friday's show.
I didn't think this out very well because it's hot as hell in here.
You don't look that hot, so you look.
I didn't want to turn my AC on because that would mean turning the car on, which would mean turning the radio on, and I guess
all these things you have to live. You have to think about when you're living in your car, right?
Correct. So
thanks so much, man. We'll talk to you on Friday.
I'll go back to the truck now and go to sleep.
That's our buddy Brian Neubert, and that's our show for Gold and Black Radio in this Tuesday edition. Wanted to give a final thank you to Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans. East End Grill and Ripple & Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette. The Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, perfect for a relaxing staycation or a weekend getaway, escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. And Sand Valley Resort, celebrate all that the wilderness provides this fall and winter at Sand Valley. Start planning your next winter getaway by visiting sandvalleypursuits.com. And of course, don't forget to sign up to become a member for Tom, for Brian, for Carm, for Alan, for I guess me, even though I'd be a distant fifth on that list. And all the best Purdue coverage right here at goldandblack.com. Really appreciate you guys, of course, tuning into these shows and reading all of our coverage there on the website. Until Friday, you'll see you then. I'm Derek Schutlz. Have a great rest of your week.